Let's just talk about Flexbox and positioning on a web page. So yesterday we did a little bit of wireframing. Wireframing is really important. It's just like pseudocoding, except it's for your like from a design perspective for your HTML. So with that, I'm just gonna pseudocode or wireframe this nav bar and then utilize Flexbox to get everything kind of positioned the way I want it. So with that, I'm gonna use limnew. Yep. And it's really good. Just all right, here's my basic web page. And now I need to develop a nav bar. So if I'm using this as a reference, this entire front, like everything that's in gray, that's probably going to be some tag. So I'm going to create another box right here for the navigation. Let's just create a nav bar or a nav tag. And then we've got these 5 different, it might be a logo, it might be a button or anything or something like that. But we have the company name or logo on the left side, and then some action items on the right side, which features enterprise support login. These are probably links, and that login might also be a link, or it could be a button. I haven't decided what that's going to be yet. So over on the right, we're probably going to have a logo or the company name by itself. I don't need, it's literally probably going to be like an H1 tag or something like that. And then over here on the right, notice how all these are all kind of placed over to the right. So they're probably all sharing some kind of styling or some kind of stylistic feature or attributes that are the same. So all of those are probably encompassed in its own div by itself. So I'm going to create another big div around that. And then within inside of that div, it's going to have their own like links or buttons. So it's going to have like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So that looks about right for the nav bar. And over here, I've got a blank canvas. Nothing's loaded into it, which corresponds to this. So I need to make an HTML file, which I have. So I need to populate that with the basic HTML structure. I can literally you can do .bang or bang and do that. Or you can like type HTML, and depending on what plugins you have, you can do something like that. So I guess I'll just do that. I think that's why I do the async defer, is because of what it comes out to naturally. So I don't need JavaScript. I'm not doing any JavaScript. I'm going to delete all this stuff. I don't need any of this. These are just comments. I'm going to delete that. Cool. All right. But I do need my styles, styles.css. And so in here, I'm going to have a nav bar followed by an H1, followed by some div, and I'll call these links for right now. So they're A tags. So I can do nav. And then I've got, let's do an H1 and the company name. And then I'll have some div followed by some A tags. And do 4 of them. And features or feature, enterprise, support, and login. All right, let's look at what our web page looks like. Doesn't look it's anything like what up like that. So with our with our web page and our nav, I'm going to call this ID because usually this is, I'm going to call it a logo because this is where usually logo goes. And I'm going to do a class. What's the difference between a class and an ID?
IDs are unique, and classes can be set on any number and type of tags.
So throughout my entire application in HTML, no other element should be using the ID of logo. It's only reference, it should only be applied right here. Or this class of, I'm going to say nav buttons. This can be used in another div or somewhere else in my application. And href, whoop. I'm going to copy that. So these are links. Currently, they don't go anywhere. This is where I would type like where they actually go on the web page, but right now they don't go anywhere. All right, so how the link kind of shows up like that. They know their links. They don't go anywhere. Cool. Now I've imported my styling. The first thing I want to do is body. I'm going to have it a margin of 0. All right, because I don't, so yeah. It's got a margin of 0. And this is where Flexbox comes in. So I want the features enterprise and support login to be on the same level as this. So this takes up the entire element or width of the page, and so does these logins, the nav buttons. But I want them to be on the same page. So that's where Fluxbox comes in. And in order, so Fluxbox heavily relies on how you want your child elements to interact with the parent element. So in here, where is it? How do I get it to show up? So here's the parent element, which is the nav. And I want all the child elements to shift all next to one another. So I have to tell the nav, the parent element, or also known as the container, how it wants to display the child elements, or how should the child elements interact in relation to the parent. So I'm going to use this display, and instead of display inline or inline block or any of that, I can do display flex. And I can do CSS Flexbox. And there's CSS tricks is awesome. Like I use this all the time. So display that defines the flex container, inline or block, depending. So this tells you how to utilize Flexbox. So in the container, like in the container element, which is my nav, which is the navigation, where does it go? Which is the nav, I need to do display flex. And I've inside the flex, they are in conjunction with Flexbox, they've got all these different types of attributes like flex direction, flex wrap, flex flow, justify content. And it looks like if I just do flex, I just want to see what happens. There we go. It put everything on the same line. But it doesn't look neat at all. They're right next to each other. So I'm going to come in here and look at what other ways I want. I can do flex direction, row reversed. What if I did flex direction? I just want to see what would happen. A row reverse. Will it actually change anything? See, it just essentially mirrored it the other way. But I don't want to use that specific property. So go back. But there is a property down here called justify content. This is one you'll use a lot. this is kind of like how you want the elements, the child elements to be separated out within the parent. And right now there's only 2 child elements within the nav. There's the H1, which is the company name, and then this div, which consists of all the nav buttons, the feature, enterprise, support. So there's really only 2 child elements in relation to nav. So I actually want these completely spread apart towards the outer edge of the page. So I can look at Flexbox. I can do flex start, flex end, center, space between, space around, space evenly. I'm going to do, let's look at justify content. Let's see what center looks like. So they're centered, which is not what I want. I'm going to do space between. That looks more like how I want it to eventually look. So there is that. But now I want to, let's see what I want. I'm looking at this. It looks like I want a border. So I'm going to do border bottom solid. So we got this border bottom property. I'm saying how I want it. I want it to be a solid border. So if I do border CSS, we have all these different, I can do dotted, dashed, double, groove, ridge, onset, outset, none hidden. So I'm going to do border bottom solid. So if I refresh, there's my border bottom. Looks okay now. But is there, what do I want? And I also want the background property to be gray. So background color, I can just say gray. That's too dark. If I hover over it, I'm able to make it lighter by using these RGB values. That might be better. That's a little bit better. Still kind of dark. All right. Where'd it go? Yeah, that's good. That's better. All right. And right here, the company name, it's all the way to the edge of the screen. So I'm going to change that by adding some margin to it. So I've got the ID of logo. How do I access the ID in CSS? Because right here, I'm just accessing the individual tags by just typing the tag name. How do I access? I could access this H1, but if I'm using H1s throughout my application, it'll change all of the H1s. So I want to target specifically the ID.
Pound.
So pound sign. So pound the name of the ID. And I'll do margin. If I want to do margin left, I can do 20 pixels. There we go. I changed the margin a little bit. If I just wanted to use the single margin, and if I only wanted to change the left, so if I use the margin property and do spaces, it looks like it goes by a clock. So I can do, this is margin top, this is margin right, this is margin bottom, this is margin left. So if I refresh it, oh no, what happened? So the H1 already has built-in margin to it. So now I'm explicitly saying the H1 tag should have 0 margin around it. So this isn't the optimal way. I'll actually go back to margin left because I want to keep those other margins. There we go. Now for the nav buttons, I'm going to create, let's see if this works. So I want to specifically target this class nav buttons. How do I explicitly target a class?
Dot class.
Dot class or dot class, like the name of it.
Class name.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna do margin top 20 pixels. Let's see what this looks like. There we go. It's pretty center. It's not precise, but it's good enough for me right now. All right. Now I don't like the way these links look. I don't like how they're blue. I don't like how they're underlined. So I can explicitly target all the links, and I can get rid of these underscores, how they're underlined, by doing text decoration and just saying none. So there's already explicit decoration applied to the link tag, the A tag. I don't want that. So I'm going to get rid of that. And I don't like how they're purple. So I'm going to take the text color, which is by just doing color, make it black. And there we go. But they're also like really compressed. So I'm going to add some padding. How is padding different than margin?
Padding is inside the box.
Yep.
Margin outside the box.
So really good reference in the Chrome developer tools. So if I highlight this, it shows there's the actual text, there's the padding, there's the border, which there isn't any, and there's the margin. And I'll highlight what that is. It's called the box model. And you can also see change different on the fly styling from the Chrome developer tools. But I want the login to actually have a border around it. And with that, I can specifically target the login by doing A, and I can specifically grab the last child of everything within these A tags. So there's all these tags, I can grab the last child, or I can grab the second to last, or like the third child or the second child. I can target them individually. I'm going to do A dot last child. I'm going to say border, and border can take in multiple attributes, just like the margin. And the first attribute can actually say like border CSS. Is it shorthand? Border property. So the first takes in how wide you want your border, takes the style of the border, and then it takes the color of the border. So for border, I just want it to be 2 pixels, solid, and let's say aqua. All right, that's kind of, does that even look like it? No, I should make it purple. Is light purple a thing? No. So we're getting closer to what it should look like. Do I have nav buttons, margin top? Doesn't look like.
Can you change your padding like you would the border by doing the 4?
Yep, you can. So I can do like, if I'm just doing padding 20 pixels, it's 20 pixels all around. If I want to target each individual, I can do like 0 pixels, or just 0, 5 pixels, 10 pixels, 20 pixels. And so see how it's kind of weird now? Because it's not all the way around. I just want to see if I can do margin top, if that's going to actually change anything. Might not. Yeah, it didn't change anything. Which is fine. but the border, it's a square. I want it to actually have some radius to it. Can't really see it there, but I just don't want it to be a square. So I can actually do last child. You can edit right here. I can do border.radius. Let's do 15 pixels and see how it kind of changes it like that. So now I know that works. I can come down here, border radius. Let's actually do 10 pixels. There we go. But when I click on this, I want this to change a color. I actually want all these to change. Actually, I'm going to keep this. That's fine. When I hover over them, I want them to change the color. So I can do a.hover. So that's a current state of that. I can do background color, purple. It's going to look really ugly, but ugh. And I want to change the color, the text color to white.
Hey, Tom, on the Mac, if you open up your digital color meter, I use this all the time when I'm
This
trying.
thing?
Well, there's one built into the Mac, and the nice thing is you can do Command-Shift-C, and it'll copy it to the clipboard if the color meter is open.
I don't even know. Is it a color meter?
Just type in color. Color should get you there. Digital color meter.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So now you can hover over whatever website you're trying to poach colors from.
I never knew this existed. This is awesome.
Command-Shift-C will copy the values for you.
That's amazing. I used to have to like import photos or take a screenshot and import it into something, and then it will extract the RGB value. Oh, that's going to save a lot of time. Thank you.
Stuck up, Toby. Hey, Tom, on that A last child.
Yep.
So will that apply to then, obviously, right, to any list of A's that you do anywhere?
Yeah.
The last child of whatever list it is.
Yep.
Okay.
But with that, so this is close to it. I had some. This is fine for right now. Actually, what if I did nav lower? Yeah, that looks ugly. I just want to see what that looked like. So that's how specifically Flexbox works. You encapsulate the parent with the attribute display flex, and then you pretty much change anything. You utilize the parent element by using like justify content, space between, space around, like that, space between, then yeah. And you can do like, where's another one? Flexbox, is it flex wrap? If I do like flex wrap, what should happen is this entire element should go down to the next line. And for the nav, I can do like min or max min height. I don't know, 300 pixels. See what that looks like. Yikes. That's still too long. That's better. And if I do margin, I just want to see. Yeah, it didn't change anything. Yeah. So that's how like Flexbox works. And for here, I can also do like margin right. See like 10 pixels to get that away from the screen a little bit. There we go. So with that, let's do some styling with the CD with the number guessing game. Let me open it up. Where'd it go? In here, CD, CD number guessing game, code. Let's see if this works. Number guessing game. I'm coming here. Here we go. So let's do some styling. Where'd it go? So I've got the CSS. It's just this right now. Now I want to, I want to change this button. So what's this, the button element? So it's submit button. So I can do, the ID is submit button. And I want to do it, have a width of 10%, which is literally the 10%, how wide it is of the enclosing element. What we got? 10%, a height of 30 pixels. Let's look at what that looks like. All right, it's kind of looking better. I don't like the basic design of the number, so I'm going to do text decoration none. So that didn't do anything. Do I want a border? So I want a border 1 pixel long. I want it to be solid and blue. All right, that's better. So the text decoration may have nothing. So do I even need the text decoration? Nope. All right. Oh wait, yeah, though. So the text decoration, I don't like that blue around it. So I think that's what the text decoration did. It still is there. Huh. Oh well. Oh, that would be the outline, right? So I don't like that. So if I do outline and say none, see now there's no outline. So when I click it. But I don't like this doesn't really have any interaction. And it's right up against the input. So I'm gonna do margin. And margin also can take, it can take in 4 inputs, it can take in 3 inputs, 2 or 1. So if I just do 2, I can do 20 pixels. That's for up and down, the top and bottom margin, and left and right. Now that's a little bit better. And I also want this to kind of have some drop shadow to make it look kind of 3D. So I can do box shadow, which takes in a multiple of parameters, 3 pixels, 5 pixels, or 3, 3, and 5. So this is how the offset of the shadow, like how it's displayed, like from the light, like from a lighting perspective. And this 5 is how dispersed it is, how blended it is. Then I can also take in a color, let's say gray. Or I just want to do hashtag 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So if I refresh it, how it's got some drop shadow, it's looking a lot better. If I didn't have this here, it's going to look super, it's not going to look like an actual shadow. It's not like as blended. So that's why I use the 5 pixels. So it's kind of dispersed a little bit. It's evenly distributed. All right. Now, when I hover over this, I want it to change. Like I want it, there's no indication to the user that this is hovered. Like I can click this, even though I can because I'm clicking a bunch of stuff. So I can change the styling based off of this current state of this element by using what we did before, the hover. So I can do background color, light blue, see what that looks like. So looking a little bit better, but I don't like how fast it changes everything. Well, hold on. I also want to change the cursor. So right now the cursor is just the little arrow. I want it to change to a pointer. Is that what I just did? There, it's like, oh, I can click that. I also want to transform or I don't want it to be as rigid. Like I don't want that transition to like immediately change. I want the transition to gradually change. So I can use the transition property. I want to transition all the properties. So all of these, I want to target all the properties and have it change the transition take half a second. See how it slowly transitioned? I can do it, I can say 2 seconds, and I can watch how slow it changes. There we go. But I want it to be a little more fluid. It's a little bit better. But I also want to keep on doing this. So when I hover over it, I want it to look like it's 3D. So when I hover over it, I want the drop shadow to get bigger, as well as I want the button to actually look like it's raising up. So I've got the transition. I can do the box shadow. I want it to get bigger, 8 pixels, 8 pixels, 8 pixels, and pretty much everything else is the same. So now this is going to transition. That's kind of nice. But like the box shadow's changing, but the button doesn't look like it's moving. So I can use the transform, which takes in X and Y coordinates of what I want to change. So when I change the element to go up 3 pixels, the X coordinate and the Y coordinate. So the Y coordinate is -3. That means I want to move it up 3 pixels. Whoops.
You transform, you have transition.
Oh, sorry. Yep, transform. And the transform actually it's not just this, I want to translate the element. There we go. See, I'm actually like hovering over it. It looks like it's raising up, like away, like more away from the screen. So the drop shadow is getting bigger. But it's not having any indication like when I'm clicking it. Nothing's changing when I'm clicking it. So the user, there's no, like, just by clicking it. I want it to change when I'm actually clicking it. So when I click it, is another state, submit button. When I click it, it turns to an active state. So I can do .active. And when it's active, I want the background color to turn back to blue. I want the actual text color to turn to white. I want the cursor to actually change to actually look like it's clicking something. So grabbing. And I want the box shadow to change again. Back shadow to change back to the original one. So when I raise it, or when I come in here and I say like 50, and I click it, the box shadow changed and the color changed, all that. Not bad.
And it'll do that as long as you hold down the clicker?
Yep, so it's currently in an active state. I'm like holding it down based off of the cursor, how it's like it's grabbing something. Then when I let go, it goes back to its hover state. So hover state, clicked it, so it's active, release it, goes back to its hover state, and now I exit. It's looking a little nicer. But the input number, I don't like the way that looks. Like the actual input, this part. So I'm gonna go up here, I'm gonna just copy paste this in here. There we go. That's a little bit better. So I changed the size of the input box by having a width of 10%, having a height of 30%, no outline, and I want the font text inside of this to be bigger. There we go. Does anybody have any questions? These are called pseudo classes. Yeah. These hover, active. There's a bunch of, there's other ones as well. There's like link, unlink. Yeah, you can just type in pseudo classes and see. All right. With that, I want to add, so I've got my number guessing game. Has anybody heard, like, so if I go to Replit, so how does it know, hey, Pima, that's my like my username? How does it know that I'm already logged in? If I open up the console, so the website Replit already knows some information about me when I land on it. And they know it because there's data stored in the web browser when I visit the site, and it stays there forever unless I like clear it or go into private mode or something like that. And it's called local storage. So if I literally type in local storage, when I visited this website, all this data got stored in it regarding this specific website. So when I visit it again, somewhere in the Replit application accesses my local storage, sees if there's any data, probably grabs that data, goes into the database, grabs my name, a bunch of stuff, and then it knows I'm already like logged in. So, and it's literally, you just type in local storage, and you can see this like wherever you go. Like, where is it? So if I go to like GitHub, and I type in local storage, it knows I'm logged in. It's got some other things about me. If I go to google.com, I'm like afraid to even type in what local storage in here. It's got all this stuff. This tells you like companies store stuff in here to tell you what type of advertising. Like this is like how they target you. So if I clear my local storage, well, I'm actually not going to do that yet. So yeah. So with that, that means you can actually, does anybody have any questions about local storage?
Is that different than a cookie?
Yeah. Yeah, there's cookies, there's local storage, there's session storage. Yeah, it is a little bit different. And we'll get into cookies, I think, later on in the course. So let's play a number guessing game. I want to know whether this user has been here before. So if I come up here, let's play a guessing game. Inside of here, I'm going to add some additional HTML that says, welcome, please enter your name. And it takes in a username, Tom, and when I click submit, I want it to store it into my local storage. And then the next time I visit it, I want some logic when the page loads to check my local storage. So local storage, currently there is nothing in here. And if you notice about something about local storage, it looks like an object, but it's actually a string representation of an object. So
again, the local storage, there's a different local storage for each website, correct?
Yep. So I've got a local storage of nothing right now. In order for me to actually add something to local storage, there's a built-in method called setItem that takes in a key, like name. I'm just gonna say that's a key, and a value, like say Tom. All right, now if I type in local storage, I've got name, Tom, and you can literally add anything to this. But now if I wanted to add some numbers, undefined, anything, it shows up as a string. And in order to clear local storage, you can actually do clear, or you can even go up to here in your Chrome developer tools and go down to application, and you can say clear storage and clear site data. And you can also see all the different storage items. There's session storage, there's local storage, but I just cleared it. All right. So in my JavaScript, what is this? So I've got picked a random number, but in my actual JavaScript, I want to run some information. I'm going to come over here, bring that over there. So in my index.html, I have welcome, a div that says get username, an input, just like we have before, which says placeholder username, and a submit button. So just like we were grabbing data from the information, just like we were grabbing data from the user, grabbing data from the number input by clicking that button, we're essentially going to do the same thing over here. So I can say document.get element by ID, submit username, which is this button, adding an on-click event handler to it. And then I'm accessing the local storage. I'm setting the item to username, the key name, and then I'm actually grabbing the value from this input over here from an HTML. So document.get element by ID, username, value. So username.value. So when I refresh it, and I type Tom and click the submit username, is not defined. HTML get element by ID app.js 35. What does it say?
The function.
Sorry. Get rid of that because I'm going to check some other information. So if I do like, so it should have still gone through. If I say local storage, there's my username, Tom. So, but every time I refresh it, still tells me to enter my username, which I don't want it to. I just want it to say welcome, Tom, and I don't want it to display this stuff. So I can write a method called does user exist? And that is going to have some logic in here. It's going to say if local storage dot get item. So if I say local storage dot get item and type in the key name, username, oh, just come on. To look for it, it returns Tom. If there is no key name, like something, it'll just return null. So it's saying if local storage dot get item username, if it exists, let username equal local storage dot get item, the username. So this will equal Tom. And then it says document dot get element by ID, this welcome, which is up here, where it just says welcome initially. I want the inner HTML to say welcome, and I'm using string interpolation, welcome, followed by the username. And then I'm going to return this entire div, this get element by ID, get username, and I'm saying dot remove that entire element. So the first time and then down here, I'm going to actually call that. Down here, does user exist? I'm going to comment that out first. I'm going to say local storage. I'm going to clear it first. Clear, just so we're starting fresh. Oh. So if I type Tom, click username, what's going on? Local storage, Tom, but look, nothing's actually changed. But if I refresh it, there it goes. Welcome, Tom. But I actually want, once I submit a username, I want it to run this function so it essentially refreshes everything. So welcome, Tom. So let's start from scratch again, clear. So let's refresh it. There's no username. I type Tom. Well, let's see, like local storage. So yep, there's nothing in there. I come here, I submit that username. It says welcome, Tom, and it removes those elements because I says it does user exist, and then the user already exists. So now every time I refresh it or like delete this and come back here and add this to the page, it says welcome, Tom again. And it's still there. It persists for infinite, forever until you clear it. So that's local storage. Anybody have any questions? I'll stop recording.